Soul, Nature, and God, Part 1. According to the Vedanta philosophy, man consists of three substances, so to say. The outermost is the body, the gross form of man, in which there are instruments of sensation, such as the eyes, nose, ears, and so forth. This eye is not the organ of vision, it is only the instrument. Behind that is the organ. So the ears and not the organs of hearing, they are the instruments, and behind them is the organ, or what in modern physiology is called the center. The organs are called indriyas in Sanskrit. If the center which governs the eyes be destroyed, the eyes will not see. So with all our senses. The organs again cannot sense anything by themselves until there be something else attached to them. That something is the mind. Many times you have observed that you were deeply engaged in a certain thought and the clock struck and you did not hear it. Why? The ears were there, vibrations entered it, and were carried into the brain, yet you did not hear because the mind was not joined to the organ. The impressions of external objects are carried to the organs, and when the mind is attached to them, it takes the impressions and gives them, as it were, a coloring which is called egoism I. Take the case of a mosquito biting on the finger when I am engaged in some work. I do not feel it because my mind is joined to something else. Later, when my mind is joined to the impression conveyed to the indriyas, a reaction comes. With this reaction, I become conscious of the mosquito. So, even the mind joining itself to the organs is not sufficient. There must come the reaction in the form of will. This faculty from which the reaction comes, the faculty of knowledge or intellect, is called buddhi. First, there must be the external circumstance, the external instrument next to the organ, next to the mind must join itself to the organ. Then must come the reaction of the intellect, and when all these things are complete, there immediately flashes the idea, I and the external object, and there is a perception, a concept, knowledge. The external organ, which is only the instrument, is in the body, and behind that is the internal organ, which is finer. Then there is the mind, then the intellect faculty, then egoism, which says, I see, I hear, and so forth. The whole process is carried on by certain forces. You may call them vital forces. In Sanskrit, they are called prana. This gross part of man, this body in which are the external instruments, is called in Sanskrit Sthula Sharira, the gross body. Behind it comes the series beginning with the organs, the mind, the intellect, the egoism. These and the vital forces form a compound which is called the fine body, the Shukshma Sharira. These forces are composed of very fine elements, so fine that no amount of injury to this body can destroy them. They survive all the shocks given to this body. The gross body we see is composed of gross material, and as such it is always being renewed and changing continuously. But the internal organs, the mind, the intellect, and the egoism are composed of the finest material, so fine that they will endure for eons and eons. They are so fine that they cannot be resisted by anything. They can get through any obstruction. The gross body is non intelligent, so is the fine, being composed of fine matter. Although one part is called mind, another the intellect, the third egoism, yet we see at a glance that no one of them can be the knower. None of them can be the perceiver, the witness, the one from whom action is made, and one who is the seer of the action. All these movements in the mind or the faculty of intellection or egoism must be for someone else. These, being composed of finer matter, cannot be self effulgent. Their luminosity cannot be in themselves. This manifestation of the table, for instance, cannot be due to any material thing. Therefore, there must be someone behind them all, who is the real manifester, the real seer, the real enjoyer, and he in Sanskrit is called the Atma, the soul of man, the real self of man. He it is who really sees things. The external instruments and the organs catch the impressions and convey them to the mind, and the mind to the intellect, and the intellect reflects them as on a mirror, and back of it is the soul that looks on them and gives his orders and his directions. He is a ruler of all these instruments and master in the house, the enthroned king in the body. The faculty of egoism, the faculty of intellection, the faculty of cogitation, the organs, cognition, the organs, the instruments, the body, all of them obey his commands. It is he who is manifesting all of these. This is the Atma of man. Similarly, we can see that what is in a small part of the universe must also be in the whole universe. If conformity is the law of the universe, every part of the universe must have been built on the same plan as the whole. So we naturally think that behind the gross material form, which we call this universe of ours, there must be a universe of finer matter, which we call thought. And behind that, there must be a soul which makes all this thought possible, which commands, which is the enthroned king of this universe. That soul which is behind each mind and each body is called Pratyagtaman, the individual Atma, and that soul which is behind the universe as its guider, ruler, and governor is God.